This little garden is teaching me to enjoy the present. Nothing else really matters, man.
When we first moved into this house, it looked very different than it does right now. It looked a lot like the houses around it. Nice green yard. The people that renovated it had put some bushes along the walkway that would eventually grow big and tall. Instead, we wanted to create a garden. So what we had to do was cover the grass with cardboard, and then cover that cardboard with soil and let that lay all winter, so the grass would get killed, the soil and the straw would break down and turn into good nutrients for the garden that we eventually start. Eventually, plants that we planted in the fall came up during the early spring. Once we built everything, it's then a process of waiting. Everything was built during the fall and during the winter, and the ground was getting ready. Laying out this herb spiral, laying out hay everywhere, just killing off the grass. All part of the process to eventually be able to have a garden. And so this was winter, and then by springtime we were getting ready to plant. And you can see there's lots that has happened, but not much has grown yet, right? Because this was the first year. All of this work was done during the winter, and you can see there's almost nothing growing in the yard, right? Because we hadn't planted it yet. Here's what it looked like our first spring. We had planted some stuff in the ground, but nothing has really come up yet. And then here is what it looks like right now. Okay, very different. Just a little bit of work, a little bit of effort, a little bit of... So we are going to go on a little bit of a garden tour today. We're going to take a look at what the garden looks like here at the middle of June. We're taking a little bit of a look at what it looked like at the beginning of the year in March. Now I want to see what's going on out here. I want to share that. We'll look at bits and pieces. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are out here, and we will get a sense of what's growing and what's coming. Let's go check it out. As we head out into the garden, right off to our right, we have this big area right here. It's a combination of two plants. The first are these clematis, which is a flower that we grow just because they're beautiful. We look down here, you can see all of the clematis seed pods growing down here, but also, if you look carefully, there's two different types of leaves here. There are the clematis, you can see over here. Okay. And then over here, this is actually what's called a hardy kiwi. And so this whole vine is a kiwi vine that will grow little tiny, like grape-sized kiwis. Hopefully next year. This is the third year we've grown it. It's gotten big and strong, but it has not started to produce any fruits yet. This is our pollinator garden. You can see our maypops have kind of taken over, but there are lots of Joe Pye weed, okay, clematis, poppy, that's an onion, those are golden rods. There's lots of different flowers in here that are planted to attract our pollinators. Of course, we need the pollinators to pollinate our plants so that we get fruits. On the other side, okay, this is called butterfly weed, okay, because it attracts butterflies. And this is milkweed, which is just starting to bloom. Okay, the two of these are plants that are good for butterflies and other pollinators. So this side of the garden is actually the forest side. There are a lot of trees and things that are along the fence. Behind the wall, I'll point out a couple of things. In those wooden frames are our potato plants that are growing. I'm not going to go back there because it's a little bit of a thing to get to, but they're our potato plants. And right here, this plant right here, these little flowers, this is called a goji berry. You can see how many flowers it has. You're going to get berries in from this. You should be able to eat a lot of this year. And so goji berry is a plant from kind of like northern China, also called wolfberries. We find them here in America in a dried form. And we're going to be able to eat some fresh wolfberries or goji berries off of these two plants. Right behind the goji is our fig. 3 years ago when we planted, this fig was like a foot tall, and you have each of these leaves the size of my hand. And if you look in here, there's the fig. So we're going to get dozens of figs off this plant this year. But I'd like to really point out to you guys, if you look carefully, you see some darker colored wood, and you see some lighter colored wood. So that lighter colored wood is this year's growth. So all of, if you look here where it changes, this was here last year, and then all of this grew this year. Okay? And then during the winter, what we'll do is decide how we want the plant to grow, what direction, and we might cut some of these off to get it to grow in a certain way. But this fig plant is beautiful, nice and healthy. Like I said, figs all over the place. Here in May's garden, we have a pepper plant that is getting some, you can see that, some pepper flowers. We have some lettuce, we have some baby cucumbers. Here we have some parsley. Joe pie weed, asparagus, and here is one of our 2 pawpaw trees. Here's one, there's the second. I'm going to insert the picture of what the pawpaws look like when we planted them. These things were tiny 2 years ago. And they're real nice, big, and tall. When we get over there, we're going to see if we can find the fruit, because there were some pawpaw fruits growing earlier. Nanking cherry. We got 2 cherries off of this tree this year. At the base of the Nanking cherry, this is a native flower, violet, and a ground cherry. Okay, and look, there's a ground cherry on the ground for us to pick and eat later. But the ground cherries are kind of growing underneath everything and we spread, so we get lots to eat. Here we have a raspberry patch. Okay, so again, if you look carefully, you can see the light color of this called raspberry cane. That means it's this year's growth versus the dark color there, that is last year's growth. So all of this that you can see that's lighter colored is this year's growth. And it means that that raspberry is spreading. Here's our second pawpaw. This thing is much taller than I am. With nice healthy looking trunk. Some pineapple mint at the bottom. We're going to go ahead and go in here and look around to see if we can find the pawpaw fruits. So no luck finding the pawpaw fruit, but we may have dropped off this year. Let's continue along. We have some blueberry. I believe it looks like it got knocked off. There was one blueberry growing this year. Continuing along, this whole plant is something called a gooseberry. Right? And again, the lighter color growth is brand new. And then here we go. This darker stuff is from last year. So most of this growth is pretty new. This is our first full year having this planted. We planted it last year. And there are the gooseberries that we have this year. So they grow on the second year growth. You can see that this is darker, more established growth, which means that next year all of this will produce berries. And then continuing along, we have a bunch of collards. Here is our Nanking cherry again. Okay, there's Thea sleeping in the shade, and Holly chewing on some bamboo. And then this is my horseradish plant. So each of these plants, you can eat the leaves, they're a bit sharp, but it's down there underground is where the root of the horseradish is growing. And everything over here on the food forest side is designed to grow and continue to grow without much effort. Right? You try plants and berry bushes and things like this. Mint at the bottom will kind of just do what it needs to do. Keep growing. Right? We trim it every year. We kind of control where it wants to grow, but it grows and produces us food. Over here, this is different. All of this is our stuff that we have to plant each year to come back. Right? Like this garlic is actually going to be pulled out of the ground fairly soon, but we planted this in the fall. Quick interjection. One of the garlics had gotten broken the other day, so it actually got pulled out, and I wanted to show it to you. Right? So when we were looking at the garlic, right, you see all of this part out of the ground, and then this part is growing in the ground. Here are the roots. It's usually kind of poking up out of the ground. You can see. You want to check it out? So you can see how it got broken there. Normally you pull this out, you let it dry for a couple of days. When it dries, that's when it forms this papery shell that helps to protect the garlic while you're storing it. And then the garlic cloves are inside. You let it dry for a couple of days, and then you can either cut it off there, or in the past you kind of weave all of these together to make a garlic chain. I'll show you what that looks like as well. But this is what the garlic that I'm talking about right here looks like once it's pulled. It has been growing all year. Now inside of the garlic, we just planted some celosia, which is a type of amaranth. And when we get over there, here we go. Here is a tomatillo. And here are the little tomatillo flowers. I don't know if any tomatillos have started to grow yet, but eventually, or soon. So these garlic come out, and other things we planted for the fall, for the late summer and fall. Continuing along over here, this is thyme. And so all of this thyme is an herb. Very tasty. Okay. Dinosaur kale. Here is a tomato plant. Here's another type of kale. More mint. And then our blackberries, which you can see are starting to get their color. Fairly soon we will have blackberries to eat. Moving over to the side, some more celosia. You may recognize this plant from the Bridges garden from a year ago. This frame is here to support our cucumbers. You can see the cucumber vine is starting to grow up it. Okay, big old tomato plant with some tomato flowers. This is a Mexican torch sunflower. There is a melon right there starting to grow, and another one right here. Big old blackberry cane that I need to tie up because it's starting to grow in the way. Look at the size of that though. And of course, more cucumbers and the cucumber flowers. And if you look carefully, there is a little baby cucumber growing. Moving along into our asparagus patch. You can see the tip of the asparagus here. We're pretty much done eating off this patch for the year. So now this just grows and provides habitat for some of the insects that we like. But it basically just grows. All of this will gather that sunlight, grow big and strong, and then next year it will produce lots of asparagus for us to eat. And we have some melons growing right here. You can see they're starting to develop their flowers right there. Here is a plant called borage. Pollinators love borage, but you can actually also eat the borage flowers as well. And look how many flowers the thing is producing. Now we start to get into our big annual producers. So you can see a lot of tomato plants here. They're all staked up because they will get nice and heavy. We'll run to the side. Up here we go. There's our first, it's called a mushroom basket potato. A mushroom basket tomato. Now more of them. This is called, I think this is Matt's Atomic, or Brad's Atomic Cherry. Here is a poppy flower that is starting to bloom. Here's what they look like when they're in bloom. Here's the poppy. Here are some pea pods. Okay, these have been growing for a little while. They're just about done growing, but they've also been nice little pea pods because they produce nitrogen in our soil that will help all of this grow. Here's some more tomatoes. These are a yellow pear tomato. And then most of this right here, this is a plant called kohlrabi. You can eat the leaves, but most people grow it for this big base. Oh, here's a good sized one. So that's the kohlrabi that we're growing. So this whole row are different types of peppers. Some hot, some grilling peppers, but lots of different types of peppers. And I believe this plant might have, yep, there's the first pepper growing. Right there. It's been a little bit of a slow year for peppers, but they're definitely coming in now. Keep coming along. This plant and this plant are okra. Here is a basil, and then this plant and this plant are eggplant. And up, yep, here we go. Here's our first eggplant flower starting to move. So, oops, the eggplants are coming in nicely as well. So this is the annual side. Right, so these are all things that, except for the blackberries, these are all things that we have to plant kind of every year. And then of course I have my pomegranate tree right here. Our tree has not produced any flowers or fruit yet, but a sister tree that was given to a friend of ours has. And I think, if you look carefully, this is damage from the cicadas. So these little marks are where a cicada laid its eggs, right? And that caused this break in this branch. So this branch will probably actually die, but the benefit is it'll branch here next year. So it's a balance. Then the last thing to show up in the garden is our herb spiral. Lots of different things growing in here. This is a plant called lemon balm. We use it for tea, tastes of lemon. Okay, we have a sage hidden right here. There's a little plant down there called dittany, rosemary, okay, lavender. I believe that's tarragon. One of those is tarragon. Some other mint. Okay, there are lots and lots of different plants that are growing here on our herb spiral. I'm going to put in a picture of what this looked like before anything was growing, so you can see how different it looks now that it is completely full of lots and lots of different plants. This is a mint. So, like with everything to do with gardening, a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, a little bit of forethought, and you can have a beautiful garden like this growing in your space. Thanks for checking it out, friends.